Hey guys, in today's video I bring you a chilling story that will challenge everything you believe about life and death. Let's meet Scarlett Haverly, a woman who faced a terrible accident and literally crossed over to the other side. For 11 minutes, she was dead, and discovered a shocking truth about what the dead are really like and the greater purpose behind their existence. What Scarlett saw will change her outlook on life forever. So before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this. Now, get ready for an intense and transformative spiritual journey. My day started like any other. The sound of the alarm clock invaded my tired mind, and I dragged myself out of bed with a sigh of dissatisfaction. It was a Sunday, which normally meant rest, but I had promised a friend to attend a religious celebration in the city. Even though I wasn't really into religion, I thought it would be good to get out and maybe find some inspiration. The weather didn't cooperate. The rain started early in the morning, making the roads slippery. Asheville was beautiful on a clear day, but on rainy mornings, the mountains seemed more dangerous than welcoming. I always knew that driving on the winding highways could be treacherous, but I had no choice. As I drove compound, the fog began to envelop everything around me, making every turn a gamble. My fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly as the windshield wipers struggled to keep the water away. Then, it happened. I remember seeing the lights of a truck approaching quickly. He had invaded my lane uncontrollably like a steel monster. I tried to dodge, but it was too late. The sound of the impact was deafening. The world spun around me as the car was thrown off the road. The twisted metal and shattered glass formed a chaotic mosaic. And then, silence. An absolute silence. I knew something was wrong. There was no pain, but there was no control either. My body felt distant, almost irrelevant. "What do we have here?" said a distant male voice, which I later learned was that of a paramedic. "Weak pulse." "Wait, no, we don't have a pulse." Code blue. My heart had stopped. I was dead. For 11 minutes, paramedics tried to revive my body while hospital staff prepared the emergency room. However, for me, those 11 minutes were the beginning of something that would completely change my existence. From a physical standpoint, I was in a fight for my life, but on a spiritual level, I was about to experience something much greater than I could have imagined. The first thing I noticed was relief. The pain, fear, and confusion instantly disappeared, as if they had never existed. There was a lightness, a freedom that seemed to expand beyond what I understood as me. I felt like I was floating, weightless, like a leaf dancing in a gentle breeze. Below me, I saw a scene that should have shocked me but didn't. My car was totaled, on its side on the side of the road. The paramedics moved frantically around me, their muffled voices like a distant echo. It was my body there, motionless, a pale and fragile figure among the wreckage. But I didn't feel like it was really mine. There was something else attracting my attention. A light began to emerge in front of me. It wasn't like the sun or any light source I had ever seen. It was alive, pulsating, full of colors that went beyond the spectrum we know. I didn't just see the light, I felt it. She was warm, loving, almost like an eternal hug that penetrated every layer of my being. As I got closer, I realized that this light was not just a passive presence. She seemed alive, conscious. There were no words spoken, but the light communicated something that could not be translated into human language. It was as if every part of me was being understood, welcomed, and loved unconditionally. A soft but unmistakably powerful voice echoed within me. "Scarlett." It was more than hearing my name. It was feeling my name. It was as if all the experiences that shaped who I am were summoned in that moment. It wasn't just a calling. It was a profound recognition. As I moved toward the light, I began to feel a detachment from what I knew as reality. There was no more time. There was no more space. It all came down to this eternal moment of absolute love and peace. "Come, there is something you need to see." The light began to expand, revealing a path that seemed endless. There was no fear, just intense curiosity and calm acceptance. I knew I was going to a place beyond human understanding, and somehow, I felt like I already belonged there. As I walked toward the light, I felt something I had never experienced before: absolute peace. It was as if all the weight I had been carrying in life had been lifted. Fears, insecurities, pain, everything seemed insignificant compared to the love that emanated from that presence. The light began to take on a form, It wasn't something that could be described completely, as it seemed to change, like a reflection of different dimensions. There was a silhouette, vaguely human, but it was as if this figure was composed of the very essence of light. "Scarlet," the voice spoke again, soft and firm at the same time. I couldn't speak, but somehow I knew communication was possible. There was no need for words. Everything I thought or felt seemed to be known by the presence before me. The figure approached, and the longer I watched it, the more familiar it became. It wasn't a face I could identify, but there was something deeply comforting about it, as if I'd known her since before she existed. Who are you?" I finally managed to formulate the question in my thoughts. The answer came not in words, but in a wave of understanding. This figure was at the same time a part of me and something infinitely larger. It was as if it reflected what I could be, what I should be, but also something divine, beyond my earthly existence. "You're safe," said the voice, now clearer. "There is a lot you need to understand." It was then that the presence touched my consciousness in a way I could never imagine. Images and feelings began to flow like a raging river. I saw scenes from my life, moments I had forgotten, choices I had made, words that had impacted others in ways I never realized. But it wasn't just about me. It was as if I was seeing the tapestry of existence, each thread intertwined with another, forming something infinitely beautiful and complex. "Why me?" I asked, still in disbelief. "Because your journey isn't over yet." There was a weight to those words, but also a promise. The figure, now closer, extended what appeared to be a hand of light. When I touched her, a feeling of warmth and belonging invaded every part of me. "Come on, Scarlet. There is something else you need to see." And with that, the surrounding light began to transform again, revealing something that would forever change my view of existence. Resurrection bodies. As I walked toward the light, I felt something I had never experienced before: absolute peace. It was as if all the weight I had been carrying in life had been lifted. Fears, insecurities, pain, everything seemed insignificant compared to the love that emanated from that presence. The light began to take on a form. It wasn't something that could be described completely, as it seemed to change, like a reflection of different dimensions. There was a silhouette, vaguely human, but it was as if this figure was composed of the very essence of light. "Scarlet," the voice spoke again, soft and firm at the same time. I couldn't speak, but somehow I knew communication was possible. There was no need for words. Everything I thought or felt seemed to be known by the presence before me. The figure approached, and the longer I watched it, the more familiar it became. It wasn't a face I could identify, but there was something deeply comforting about it, as if I'd known her since before she existed. Who are you?" I finally managed to formulate the question in my thoughts. The answer came not in words, but in a wave of understanding. This figure was at the same time a part of me and something infinitely larger. It was as if it reflected what I could be, what I should be, but also something divine, beyond my earthly existence. "You're safe," said the voice, and now clearer. "There is a lot you need to understand." It was then that the presence touched my consciousness in a way I could never imagine. Images and feelings began to flow like a raging river. I saw scenes from my life, moments I had forgotten, choices I had made, words that had impacted others in ways I never realized. But it wasn't just about me. It was as if I was seeing the tapestry of existence, each thread intertwined with another, forming something infinitely beautiful and complex. "Why me?" I asked, still in disbelief. "Because your journey isn't over yet." There was a weight to those words, but also a promise. The figure, now closer, extended what appeared to be a hand of light. When I touched her, a feeling of warmth and belonging invaded every part of me. "Come on, Scarlet. There is something else you need to see." And with that, the surrounding light began to transform again, revealing something that would forever change my view of existence. Resurrection bodies. Would you like me to proceed to the next topic? Revelations concerning resurrection bodies. Fordo, you said. Yes, ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Chapter 4. Revelations about resurrection bodies. When the figure reached out its hand of light towards me, I felt as if an invisible door had been opened inside my mind. The light around me began to change, not diminishing but molding into shapes and contours that made sense in a new, transcendent way. "Look," the figure said, without actually using words. It was as if the understanding was transmitted directly to my soul. In front of me, something appeared that looked like a reflection of me, but was different. A body, radiant and perfect, floated before me. It was me, and at the same time, it wasn't. The skin was translucent, as if light flowed through it. There was a harmony in every line and movement, a beauty that was not just physical but spiritual. "This is the resurrection body," the figure explained. "This is how you were created to be." I was fascinated, but also confused. Why is this so different from what we are now? Earthly bodies are imperfect reflections, limited by time and corruption. But resurrection bodies are perfect, designed for eternity. They are physical, but also spiritual. They do not know pain, tiredness, or aging. They are made to glorify the Creator in fullness. As I listened, I realized what this meant. I saw that body crossing physical barriers, moving with impossible grace. I was able to interact with space and time in ways I couldn't fully understand. More than that, he was completely integrated into the light that surrounded us, in harmony with everything around him. They can feel joy, love, and adoration in its purest form, the figure continued. And more than that, they can reflect divine glory. Suddenly, I was flooded with a vision. I saw thousands and perhaps millions of bodies like that, each glorious in its own way, but united in purpose. They danced in an environment that seemed alive, like a symphony in perfect harmony. "And they're not just for you," the figure said, as if reading my thoughts. "These bodies are for all who trust, all who choose the path of light." My heart, or whatever it was in that form, filled with hope and wonder. "But there is something else you need to see," the figure said, his voice filled with a deeper meaning. "The new heaven and the new earth." The light around us began to change again, preparing me for the sight of something even grander. The light around me began to pulse, each wave bringing a sense of anticipation. It was as if the entire universe was preparing to show me something that had until then remained hidden from human eyes. The divine figure beside me seemed at peace, but there was a sense of solemnity in his presence. "Now, look," he said, and his voice seemed to open a portal into the fabric of reality. Suddenly, I was transported to a place that defies earthly description. It was a vast, infinite space, but at the same time intimate, as if it were tailor-made for my understanding. The sky was a living tapestry of colors and lights, each hue more vibrant and deeper than anything I had known. It was no ordinary sky. It seemed to pulse with life, as if it were part of an eternal song. Below, there was a land that seemed perfect in its harmony. Towering mountains rose alongside lush valleys. Crystal-clear rivers flowed with tranquil strength, and verdant forests danced to the sound of a silent yet powerful wind. It was as if the entire creation was in communion, each element in perfect tune with the other. "This is the new heaven and the new earth," said the figure next to me. "This is how everything was planned to be from the beginning." As I watched, I saw people, no, glorified bodies, moving across the landscape. They didn't walk. It was as if they floated with purpose and grace. Each was unique, but they all shared a beauty and light that made them unmistakably connected. "These bodies," the figure explained, "do not just inhabit this place. They integrate it. There is no separation between them and creation. Everything is in perfect communion." As I watched, I felt something new, a deep sense of belonging. For a moment, it was as if I were there too, part of that environment of love and harmony. "And the purpose?" I asked in thought. "Why was all this created?" "To glorify the Creator," replied the figure, "to experience joy and love in its purest form. The suffering of earthly life will be transformed here. Every tear will be redeemed. Every pain will become praise." Then I saw something extraordinary. There was a group of beings, the glorified bodies, gathered in a large field, their voices rising in a song that seemed to move the earth itself. It was as if each note carried the weight of their stories, their pain, their victories, and transformed them into a celebration of something greater. As I watched, a deep peace came over me. It was as if all the suffering, doubt, and fear I had ever felt were irrelevant to that vision. "Now do you understand?" asked the figure. "I understand," I replied. But at the same time, I felt like my journey was far from over. "There is more to see, but you must return," he said, his voice tinged with sadness but also with purpose. And with that, I began to be pulled back, feeling the vision of the new heaven and new earth slowly fade away, as my consciousness returned to the physical world. As the vision of the new heaven and new earth faded, I felt a wave of questions well up within me. It was as if my soul cried out to understand more deeply the meaning of what I had witnessed. Before he could form any thoughts, the divine figure spoke again, his voice an echo of authority and tenderness. "You have seen the destiny of creation," he said. "Now you must understand the purpose of it all." The light around us began to vibrate, as if tuned to a higher frequency. Suddenly, I was taken to a place that seemed like an infinite space, where time did not exist. There, the resurrection bodies I had seen before appeared again, but now they were not just existing, they were creating. I saw a man, or at least a being that looked like a glorified man, forming something that looked like an entire constellation with the simple movement of his hands. I saw a glorified woman playing something that looked like an instrument, but her notes were colors, shapes, and even feelings that spread throughout the space around her. I saw entire groups of these resurrected bodies working together, shaping what could only be described as new universes. These bodies, the figure explained, were designed not just to inhabit, but to participate in divine work. They are the culmination of the Creator's plan, beings who reflect His glory and share His infinite creativity. But why? I asked, still trying to absorb the enormity of what I saw. Because the Creator is love, and true love always shares. The ultimate purpose of resurrected bodies is to glorify the Creator, not just through worship, but through active participation in His eternal creation. They not only witness the glory, they make it even greater. As I listened, I realized the depth of the plan. The life we knew was just a pale shadow of this reality. The pain, the struggles, the sacrifices, all of this was a prelude to something infinitely greater. What about suffering? I asked. Why does He exist if everything is intended for this glory? The figure responded with a clarity that penetrated every part of me. Suffering is the crucible that shapes the soul. In eternity, every tear will be transformed into praise, every wound into a symbol of love. Suffering is not the end, it is the path to redemption. As I watched these glorious creations, I felt a new understanding grow within me. Every moment of pain and loss in earthly life seemed small compared to the majesty of the final purpose. These resurrected bodies were not just a promise, they were the culmination of a perfect plan, where all creation would unite in eternal joy and communion. "You have been called to witness this," said the figure, "but your journey is not over yet. It's time to go back." Before I could protest, I felt the pull again, an irresistible force that took me back to my earthly body. The pull that brought me back to my body was abrupt, almost violent. The lightness I had felt, the comfort of being free from earthly limitations, was ripped away from me like a bird being forced into a cage. I felt the weight of my earthly body return, along with crushing pain. Suddenly, I heard voices. They were frantic, full of urgency. "She's coming back. We have a pulse." A man's voice echoed around me, but it seemed distant, as if I were still between two worlds. I opened my eyes, but the light around me seemed opaque, as if everything was covered in a film of shadow. I saw blurred faces, doctors, nurses, and the sound of machines beeping around me. My chest rose and fell with difficulty, as if breathing was a monumental task. "Scarlett, can you hear me?" asked a firm but relieved male voice. I later discovered it was Dr. Ethan Corbin, the doctor who had led the efforts to revive me. I wanted to respond, but my throat felt burned. Instead, I blinked slowly, trying to process where I was and what had happened. "You are safe now. It was a miracle that we were able to bring you back," he said. But I knew it wasn't just that. It hadn't just been science or medical skill. Something much bigger had happened. Memories of what I had seen began to flood my mind. The light, the divine presence, the glorified bodies, the new heaven and the new earth. But at the same time, I felt a disconnect. It was like trying to hold water in your hands. The more I tried to hold on to those memories, the more they slipped through my fingers. "You were dead for 11 minutes, Dr. Corbin said, his voice thick with disbelief. "We did everything we could, but honestly, we didn't think you'd come back. And now, well, your vitals are incredibly strong. It's as if nothing had happened." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. I had returned, but what I had experienced there, in that light, was so glorious that returning to this world felt like a loss. A hand touched mine. It was Maggie, my younger sister. His eyes were filled with tears, but also with unshakable faith. "I knew you'd come back," she said, squeezing my hand. "God wasn't done with you, but I knew that my return was not just to continue living. Something inside me said there was a mission, something bigger than I could imagine." As the doctors and nurses around me celebrated my inexplicable recovery, I felt the power of the message I had received. I still didn't know how, but I needed to tell the world about what I had seen, about what was to come. The days following my return were a mix of relief, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Lying in the hospital bed, with monitors flashing around me and a medical team paying attention to my body's every sign, I couldn't help but think about what I had experienced. The hospital in Asheville was small, and my recovery was treated as something close to a miracle. Dr. Corbin, a skeptic by nature, visited me frequently, asking questions that went beyond medicine. "Scarlett," he said one morning as he looked at the graphs on my heart monitor, "I've seen people come back after just a few minutes without a pulse, but 11 minutes? This doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be here, at least not like this." I knew what he was implying, but how could I explain something that transcends science? "Doctor," I began, my voice still hoarse, "what you saw as a physical miracle was something much greater. I've been somewhere else. I saw something that changed everything." His eyes narrowed, not in disbelief, but in curiosity. "Another place?" As I sighed, trying to find the right words, "I saw glorified, perfect bodies living in a world that is everything this one is not, a place where there is no pain, suffering, or loss. And I understood that what we experience here is just the beginning, a preparation." Dr. Corbin remained silent for a long time before shaking his head. "I know many would say this was just a hallucination, Scarlett, but there's something in your eyes, something that makes me believe you saw something real." That conversation was just the first of many. My sister Maggie was the only one who really understood the weight of what I was trying to express. Her faith had already prepared her to accept the inexplicable. "Scarlett," she said one afternoon as she sat by my bed, "this didn't happen by accident. You were chosen to bring hope. Don't hide what you saw." But sharing my experience wasn't easy. Many listened to me with disbelief. Some treated me as someone who had suffered mental trauma. Still, I knew I needed to keep going. When I finally left the hospital, I felt a determination I had never experienced before. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew I needed to tell the world about what I had seen. I started slowly, sharing in small gatherings at the local church. People listened in silence. Some cried, others smiled with relief. It wasn't my story that touched them, but the promise of something greater, something glorious that awaited them. My message was clear. The life we live here is just a shadow of what is to come. Every suffering will be transformed. Every tear will be redeemed. What awaits us is greater than we can imagine, and this should give us the strength to live with purpose and hope now. Today, I still feel the presence of that light, that love. He guides me, gives me courage, and reminds me that my time here is temporary but necessary. My goal is to inspire others to trust that promise, to live with more compassion and courage, knowing that something glorious awaits them. I am Scarlett Haverly, and this is my truth. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.